Hey guys, welcome back to Airstream Beginner Basics Bootcamp. On this week's episode, we're going to be going over our top 5 overall tips for beginners in their new Airstream. So stay tuned to the end of this video and comment and let us know if any of these tips made your list. Did you just spend your entire life savings on a brand new Airstream? Dropped $100,000? How do you even buy an Airstream? How often do we gotta service these things? Are you scared to death that you're about to break it? Are you wondering what's the difference between payload and tongue weight, and does it even matter? How do I get insurance on this? Do I need total replacement, or should I just go with Geico? Do we drain the black tank first or the gray tank first? How do you even dump this thing? What is a black tank flush? What are those little pods we put down the toilet, and do they even make a difference? Do we really need a hitch lock? There's like 10 different Facebook groups. Which one do I even join? What do we need to buy immediately just so we can go camping? If you found yourself answering yes to any of those questions, this new series is for you. Welcome to Airstream Beginner Basics Bootcamp, where I'm gonna go over all the tips and tricks that I've learned in the last year and a half of owning a brand new Airstream, and I'm gonna give it to you straight, because I've got the whole book of secrets right here, and I'm ready to divulge all of them to you. And with that being said, welcome to Airstream Beginner Basic Bootcamp. I'm your host, Evan, with Tilly in Tacoma, and we hope to see you out in your Airstream real soon. Guys, welcome back to Airstream Beginner Basics Bootcamp. In this week's episode, we're gonna be going over our top 5 Airstream Beginner Basics tips. Tip number 1 is reality check. Or let's just say level setting our expectations for what our entire Airstream journey will even look like. I know that in the beginning when we first got our Airstream, it's really exciting. It's, the dealership, you're picking it up, it's brand new, it's very shiny. It's almost like a trophy, and like a trophy, you want to protect it and you want to keep it in a case. You want it to look exactly how it did when you picked it up at the dealership. That is not the reality of why you're purchasing an Airstream. So for us, we purchased an Airstream because we wanted to use it and we wanted to live in it. We wanted to take it camping. Airstream Basecamp is off-road, therefore it's made to go off-road. It's not made to be a trophy. So again, sit down with yourself and really check in with reality and expectation set with yourself. The reality is your Airstream is going to get dirty. There are going to be scratches on it. You're going to hit bugs. You're gonna hit debris flying off the road. There's just certain things that you can't control and that you need to understand on a personal level that you can only do so much to protect it. However, that shouldn't stop you from getting out and using it. And we found ourselves really struggling with this topic in the beginning, and I'd say probably for at least the first 6 months of owning the Airstream, is that we just wanted it to stay perfect. You hear the horror stories about servicing and it breaking and what are you gonna do? But if you get wrapped up in this mindset, then you don't actually ever use it. And then that defeats the purpose of why you bought it in the first place. So just remember, reality check with yourself. Why did we buy the Airstream? It's not doing anyone any good just looking pretty in your backyard or in the storage facility. Get out and use it. Just to wrap up tip number 1. Your Airstream is not an ornament. It's not a trophy. Get it out of the case and use it. That's why you bought it. Don't get stuck in the loop of thinking that you have to keep it perfect. You have to wash it after every use. They're made to go camping. Don't be scared to use it. Get out and use it as much as you possibly can. Tip number 2 is about preparing. Do not get yourself wrapped up in preparing fatigue. I would say that preparing fatigue is something that we really struggled with in at least the first year of owning the Airstream. I would define preparing fatigue in the Airstream world is where you're constantly trying to ensure that you have all the accessories, make sure you have your camping chairs, you're buying the best of the best. You're constantly just looking for things to fill that Airstream up just to make sure that you have an enjoyable experience whenever you're having the experience. The problem is that you can easily get sucked up into this whole new world of preparing for your trip versus actually taking the trip. And again, remember why you bought the Airstream. You didn't buy the Airstream to then just get wrapped up and sucked into the vortex of just constantly preparing for the trip that you never take. So just keep an eye out for that, because this is still really something we struggle with today, but it gets a little easier as you shift your mindset into thinking, I have what I need, now I just need to get out there. So here's some tips to help you with preparing fatigue. Set dedicated times to prepare for your trip. For example, bookend, maybe it's Monday from 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. or, you know, maybe it's an evening when your partner gets off of work that you're going to sit down, you're going to prepare for the trip. That's going to be it. You're not going to do any more preparing after that. Because if you don't, you could easily spend months preparing for a trip, and then, you know, you go out to take the trip the next morning and your tires flat, and it derails the entire plan. So again, create parameters around your trip to where it is dedicated to planning, but it doesn't actually get sucked up into the entire trip itself. Because you can easily exhaust yourself before you even take the trip, because let's face it, there's so many things to prepare for that it could easily derail the entire trip, and then you don't even get to travel anywhere. So it's just a waste of time. So again, create bookends to prepare for the trip, but don't let it affect the entire duration of the trip. And I would say, honestly, if you're going to take a 7-day trip, spend a weekend planning for the trip, but don't go over every day. Like, it shouldn't be as stressful as we sometimes make it in our heads. So just remember, book in your planning phase of your travel. You can spend hours and days and months planning the perfect trip, making sure you have all the equipment you need, you know, making sure you have batteries and solar and canned food for when, you know, you're gonna run out of food, or, you know, you have cases of water, you go to Costco, you stock up. The reality of what we've learned is that we always prepare too much when we go on trips. And I think you just have to shift your mindset is like, you know, you're going on a trip, you're going to hit grocery stores along the way. You're going to hit, at the worst, you're going to hit a gas station that does have food and beverages. Don't be so hard on yourself if you do forget something. You will be able to pick it up on your journey there. I think we just sometimes forget that we're going to like ground zero and we won't have any service, or it'll be remote. But even at our most remote national park, there's still a market inside the national park that either is flipping burgers or hot dogs. You're not going to go hungry. I would almost guarantee it. And remember, don't get sucked into planning fatigue. Tip number 3, keep a journal. And I know when we were told that when we started our camping, that to me sounded a little too poetic, I guess. I thought, I'm not going to be keeping a journal when we go camping and, you know, writing all my thoughts and emotions down. It's not so much for that. I will say, however, that this has helped really paint a narrative of where we were when we started camping and where we are now, and actually seeing the growth on paper of how far we've actually come. Keep a journal. It can be very simple, pieces of paper, a sticky notepad, whatever you have, but keep it locked in your trailer. Make sure that it's there with a pen so that you can actually use it. And make it a habit of every time that, you know, you get set up in your new camping spot, you sit at your table, you sit outside, and you just take 5 minutes of your day and write some simple things. So let's go over what you should keep in that journal. Let's just jot down some quick things, some quick bullets of what went well on this trip. You know, did we have struggles towing? What was our goal of getting to the site? What does the site look like? How are we feeling? Again, these are just bullet points just so that you can reference later, just to see like, oh wow, we have actually came a long way. Or hey, this park wasn't really cutting it for us, or this spot wasn't too great. Let's notate what went well. But on the contrary, let's also write down what didn't go well. You know, was this park really hard to get into? Was this worth all of our planning and efforts that we sought out to do to get here? Did we make our time commitments? You know, how was towing? How were the roads getting here? All that stuff really does matter, because as we've discussed before in this series, there's so much to learn in this industry that you're going to forget. Your brain is only so big. So keeping a short journal like this is really beneficial to you in the long run. And a couple other things to note in this journal. Where did you go? What state are you in? What's the weather like? What time of season are you in? Is the parks crowded? Another really fun thing we like to notate is to write the names of the people that we meet at campgrounds. Because again, I'm not very good with names. I'm great with faces. But again, like, jot down the people that you meet, and you don't need to collect their phone numbers or social security numbers, but like write down who it was. Like, we met 2 really great people in Monahan Sands in Texas, and you know, just such organic like meeting, you know, at a state park. And then long story short, we still keep in touch with them today. We invited them to our wedding. Super great people. But I mean, honestly, if we wouldn't have wrote down their names and like made an effort to connect with them and vice versa, it would have just been a misconnection. Just to conclude your journal entry, maybe rate it on a scale to 1 to 5. That's what we do. What are you going to give the site? You're going to give it a 4, a 5, 5 being like, holy, this was a really great site. 1 being like, we would probably never return here again. And the beauty of this, there's no wrong or right way to keep a journal. But all I'm saying is like, make some quick notes for yourself, quick bullets, high level. And I'm telling you, you're going to appreciate it in 2+ years or 5 years, and you look back at this journal, or maybe you forgot you even kept one, and you pop open the camper and you have a whole journal and you're just reading it one night, at a lovely state park or national park, and you're like, wow, we have really made a lot of progress. Tip number 4 is to get into a habit that every time you stop, you perform a walk-around inspection around your tow vehicle and your RV. I can't tell you how important this tip is in our daily use of using the Airstream. Anytime that we're stopping to get gas, or anytime, a bathroom break or anything, once you exit your door, make sure your tow vehicle and your RV safe whenever you're doing so, but perform a walk around visual physical inspection of the tow vehicle and your RV every single time. You will be amazed at what you find at something that will just probably take you less than 60 seconds. We found sometimes our door comes unlocked on the Airstream, which was very surprising one time when we were pumping gas. Sometimes we found that we left lights on in the cabin. Again, it is so crucial to make sure that you're doing this because, again, there's so much stuff to learn when you're beginning out doing this that you possibly just cannot keep up with it, and you're gonna miss things because you're a human and that happens. But there are certain steps that you can do to prevent a lot of common things that are missed. For example, you do a quick inspections outside. You might see where you left a latch undone, or oops, you forgot to put up the bananas and now they're in the floor all smashed, or you forgot to lock your refrigerator and all of your stuff's in the floor. All of that gets easier as you go, but in the beginning you just don't know, you can't remember how to do all those things. So again, get used to every time you're exiting your tow vehicle, doing a quick minute-long inspection. It's stretching your legs, it's great ergonomic relief, but it's also making sure that you're doing things safely. And it's just a great habit to get into. Some common things we like to check when we're doing our walk around, we will always check our blinkers and our brake lights to make sure they're working. Look at your chains, make sure that your hitching is still correct. It's still correct when you hitched it before. This is when we found that our dealership had actually installed our hitch backwards. The Blue Ox Track Pro system, the dealerships were saying like, oh, sometimes they install them upside down to help with the tow bars to make sure that they're not super impossible to get on. This is where we found that actually it was installed incorrectly and that the tow bars were actually so loose that they came undone. So we found that on one trip. Great time to visually inspect all of your tires. You're on a road. Things are bound to get stuck in them. We found one time there was a razor blade stuck in our tire. Luckily, there was no actual damage. Had we had found that later, maybe we could have had really bad consequences. And these are like really low-hanging fruit type items, but you can quickly check them off just by doing a quick visual inspection. I like to start at the grill of the truck and then just completely do a 360 around the entire truck, making sure that everything is still intact as we left it when we departed. Because things are going to move, they're going to shift, roads get rocky. If it's anything you remember out of these top 5 tips, it should be this one. Every time you exit the vehicle, perform a quick inspection around the Airstream or around your RV or whatever you're pulling, just to make sure that you're being safe, because 60 seconds literally could make or break your entire trip. Just take the time to do it. And our last and final tip is don't rush. There is literally no rush at all when you're going camping or you're pulling a travel trailer, an Airstream, whatever you're doing. This is something that takes time, and it's just something that you should not rush. And I would say only because when you rush, you will make mistakes. And again, like the whole theme of being a beginner in this industry is that it's not possible to learn absolutely every single thing before you take your first departure. That's why you should always remember is to go slow and stay in control. Because when you start speeding up, you start trying to meet your destination by, sunfall, or you try to get to a destination, an hour ahead, or you're tired, that's when mistakes happen, and usually they're big mistakes. Mistakes that you can't go back and fix, and they will detour your entire trip. Again, go slow. There's never been an instance that we need to go over 70 miles per hour when towing our Airstream. And honestly, 60 to 65 really feels more comfortable. And I think of it like this. In the event that we need to slam on our brakes, yes, we have brakes on the Airstream, we have a brake controller inside the truck. If I'm going 70 to 80 miles per hour, there's no way that I'm going to be able to safely brake and not collide with the person in front of me, or shift every single content in the Airstream straight into the dinette. Another point in this category is never travel hungry. You should never be hungry either when you're hitching your Airstream or you're thinking. For example, we sometimes get into a habit of where we're leaving in the morning. We just have a light breakfast, and then it takes us, in the beginning, it took us like almost 3 hours to actually get the hitch, get the Airstream outside of the house, and actually go. So, if we started, say, at 8 a.m., we're approaching noon by the time we actually get in the Airstream and go. And it's really hard because you just worked really hard to get the Airstream hitched and everything. You got it on the side of the road, and now you're ready to go, except now that you're hungry. And I would say a tip is never to travel hungry, just because usually once you get out on the road, you don't want to stop because it is somewhat of a hassle to get back going. And if you're in the beginning stages, very scary to even pull over safely and then, get back on the highway. So once you get going, you don't want to stop. So always make sure that you have food in a tow vehicle or you're well fed before you actually get started on your driving time. And again, there's no reason to rush. The only reason we rush is because we're either really excited to get somewhere, or we have this internal, ticking clock. You just took vacation. You don't want the hitch time. You don't want the travel time to be part of your journey. But here's the reality: it is part of your journey, and that you should shift your mind into thinking like your vacation starts as soon as you start the process of hitching your Airstream, and have fun in the tow vehicle while you're pulling. It doesn't have to be as stressful as we make it. You don't have to be like this the entire trip. Loosen up, enjoy the ride, and the destination will be worth it. And some things that I remind myself about not rushing is there is no prize to get there first. There's no ceremony as soon as we get to the state park or national park where someone's rewarding us that we got there an hour early. There just isn't. Slow and steady wins this race. To wrap up this tip, I know it's exciting to get to your destination as fast as possible, but do it as safely as you possibly can. Slow is control. Just remember that. You got to repeat it as a mantra. Slow is control. There is no first place trophy waiting for you at the campground that you got there first. Even if you do get somewhere early, it's not enough time to actually make an actual impact on your entire journey. So just remember that being in the tow vehicle, towing your Airstream, your RV, is part of the journey. Don't try to just erase that time just because you want to get to the destination. The goal is you always want to get there as safely as possible, because if something were to happen during this leg that you're rushing, it's going to impact the entire vacation for the rest of the trip. So just remember, slow is control. All right, guys, wrapping up this week's video. Those were our top 5 overall best tips that we could give someone that's beginning their Airstream journey. These are the top 5 things that we constantly are reminded of every time we get into the Airstream. The beauty of this is, we've all picked up those tips from, users, groups, or Airstream clubs. So we're happy to share that information and hope that it impacts you on your next journey.
Welcome to Tilly and Tacoma. If you're new here, I'm Kim and this is Evan, and we are first-time RVers living in a big city. Have you ever considered getting into the RV lifestyle and don't know where to start? Well, you came to the right place, because for the past year, we've proven that you don't need several years of experience or even the space to get started RVing. We post content every Sunday to share stories, advice, and tips to help you get on the road and have a few laughs along the way. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment so we can make Tilly and Tacoma the best first-time RVer community on YouTube.